Hi everyone, if you are applying or planning to apply for your marriage green card, this video is for you. In this video, I'll be sharing my personal experiences in the legal services, the application process, the required documentations, my RFE experience, and my takeaways through the whole process. Basically anything I find helpful for you, I will put them in this video. In terms of our marriage green card interview, how it went down, the questions that we were asked, and also how and what to prepare for, I'll put all of that in a separate video. Please note that the content of this video does not guarantee you a green card approval. It is solely based on my personal experience and does not constitute as legal advice. Although I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have in the comments section, please do consult your own legal counsel if you have any questions that is specific to your case. And with that, let's get into it. Dan and I got married back in late October 2021. At the time, after we got married, we only had about a month before my H-1B status expired. And so I didn't really have a lot of time to research legal options, and I was also working full-time. If you're curious about my backstory, I'll leave my vlog link in the description below. In short, we decided that we were going to use the immigration lawyer that was working on my employment-based green card for the sake of time. That said, we really didn't have to use a private lawyer because our case really wasn't that complex. Private lawyers are also on the pricier end. In our case, we spend $2,000, and that's with a discount. If your case is more complicated, a private lawyer definitely can customize the solution for you and also work on the details that will make the best case for your application. For example, without going into too much detail, I have friends who were illegal immigrants before, and depending on how they managed to enter and stay in the country, their cases required a little bit of different application process. In those scenarios, having a private lawyer will be really helpful. And if that's your case, definitely do your research before jumping in. For us in hindsight, we probably could have used services like Boundless Immigration or Simple Citizen. These services offer a more cookie-cutter solution, but you can always check with them. The best thing about these services is that their price is much cheaper. You basically go through their templated process, which should be plenty for most simple cases. And if you do go that route, one of my friends who had done it before said that you should double check the information before it is sent, because the lawyers can make mistakes and you really would know the information best. At the same time, if you have time constraints like us, definitely take that into account when you're finding your legal services solutions. Personally, if I were to do it again, I would have probably used the services from Simple Citizen based on my research. I really liked the reviews. My interaction with their support was also very helpful. So if I were to look into their service, I will look into the professional plan, which will include the attorney video calls for application review and interview preparation, as well as the RFE support, which I will also talk about later. So for my future removal of condition application, I'll definitely look into their premium plan and share my experiences then. In terms of the application forms, I know that there are a lot of them, but knowing the form numbers will really help you stay on top of your application, and also it's easier for you to communicate with your legal counsel. Here are all of the forms that I have submitted. The list is not exhaustive and not necessary for every single case, so use it as a reference. Here I will highlight a couple of items. The first one is I-131, the travel document, or advanced parole. I had concern about potential need to go back to my country because I wanted to attend my brother's wedding. My lawyer actually advised me not to leave the country during the application period. But I think that the document itself or the application itself is really helpful if you had any unfortunate events that you need to attend to back in your home country. So I want to just point that out. The second one is the form I-693, the report for medical examination and vaccination record. I didn't submit that form along with my application, but I did include my vaccination record from Taiwan in the form I-485, and I will go into more details about it, but essentially this form is the one that you will need to go to a civil surgeon. Now, for all of the forms that we had to submit, here's everything we needed. To help you better, I will give you 3 takeaways. The first one is to time your document preparation process. There are certain things that you can start early as you're preparing for certain things. Like you might need to get an affidavit from your family and friends, your birth certificate, or vaccination record from your home country. I was very lucky in that regard because I had stuff prepared when I was getting stuff ready for my employment-based green card. But I distinctly remember that my mom couldn't find my birth certificate, and so she had to go to the hospital and get it for me. My vaccination record was also saved with me from 10 years ago when I was applying for my grad school. And so those little things, you just want to time them so you can make the process easier for yourself. Secondly, for the passport photos, I recommend that you let your spouse know that it's a passport photo and all of the requirements. Dan went to Walgreens to take the photo, but actually came back with the photos that are not usable. So I ended up having to take both of our photos and used iVisa. iVisa, it gives you instructions on how to take those photos. They're pretty easy to use. They also give you the files as well for you to download afterwards. If you were to go to Walgreens, they wouldn't be able to do that. And that's really one of the things I like about iVisa, because we needed to reprint the photo, and that really helped the process and save us a little bit of money because it's $17 at Walgreens. To go to Walgreens again, it's another $17, but if you were to reprint the photos, it's just $1. So that's definitely something I recommend, and I will leave the links in the description below. Third, there is something that you need to know about the poverty guideline when it comes to what you and your spouse are making. Dan and I didn't need a financial sponsor, but we did have to show our combined finances to support our case. If you're lacking financial proof, definitely consult a legal counsel. No matter what happens, don't lose hope until you've done your research. An attorney usually is willing to give you a free consultation before you move forward with them. And from there, you can always make a plan and proceed accordingly. So with all of the forms and the materials that I had mentioned earlier, how we have worked with our lawyer was our lawyer told us everything that he needed from us, including our basic information that he can start inputting in the forms, the materials that we had to prepare for, and signatures and such. And so we took about 2 weeks to get the materials ready, and then we met up with him, signed certain papers that he needed, and then he finished the rest of it and make sure that the package was ready and thorough before he sent it out. By the time that he sent it out, I believe it was the last day of my H-1B visa, and I still remember the day was the day after Thanksgiving. And so after we sent it out to USCIS, 2 weeks after that, we received all the receipts of our forms from USCIS, which was nice. And so at that point, really it was just a waiting game. Now, a quick note on my driver's license. Since my H-1B visa expired at that point, my driver's license also expired. And at first, I thought I was going to have to wait for however long my green card or my EAD card is going to take before I can get a new one. But because I have gotten 2 90-day driving permits before from DMV during my H-1B renewal period, I thought I would give it a try. And fortunately, I got my driver's license back then. And if you're in similar shoes, I would encourage you to try that as well. I would say though, from my personal experiences, that depending on the DMVs that you go to, you might get different treatments or outcomes. I'm not saying that you would definitely get a driver's license in this particular case, but I think that in areas where DMVs work with a lot of foreign residents or foreign workers, they might be more understanding or willing to help you for the process. And so I just want to mention that really quick, and hopefully that helps. 2 months after our application was sent, I received the biometrics appointment notice in the mail. And so I went to the appointment in late February 2022. I would say that the biometrics appointment was very easy, But if you're curious or worried about how it works, I made a video sharing my experiences and also the process. If you're interested, you can check out the link in the description below. Something I will firm up from the video that I did, but I didn't know the answer to, was that the headshot that you take during the biometrics appointment was what will go into your actual green card. And so maybe some people will be interested in that. I know that when we sent in our application, the 2 passport style headshots, they were very bad. And so I could distinguish the 2. But with the biometrics appointment going smoothly, I thought, everything was in motion, and I was expecting my EAD card to come very soon afterwards. Because when I asked a lot of my friends, their experience was that their EAD card came 3 to 4 months after their application was sent. And when I consulted my lawyer, he also had similar answers back then. So I was expecting my EAD card to come about 4 to 5 months after. 4 months came, 5th month came, I still hadn't received anything. When I asked my lawyer about it, he also didn't have any update for me. So it was a total bust because I didn't know whether or not I should be looking for a position. There were also people reaching out to me for new potential positions, but I couldn't give them any decision or answer because I was in limbo. I didn't know whether or if I would be even getting my EAD card. At that time, I had only planned for about 5 to 6 months to be out of work. But the worst part is that in mid-April 2022, we received the notorious RFE, request for evidence. I was so anxious because I had received RFEs before for my employment-based green card, and my case was rejected because of some inconsistent details like dates, and that's another long story. But long story short, I was very anxious and I was burned before. But at that point, what could we do? It was what it was. And so we kept working with our lawyers to get the details, get more material submitted. What we had to do was, Dan and I got a bank account together. We put each other as beneficiaries in financial accounts. Essentially, we prepared for things that we wasn't able to do before because of the short time. And those things were reasonable. The part that was really annoying for me was that the RFE was requesting items that we have already submitted before. That included our headshot, the affidavit letters from our friends to prove our marriage was bona fide, and also the form I-130A. Thankfully, we had all of those items scanned. We also had our lawyer to take care of all of that, or else I would be really stressed. And yes, the headshot was one of the requested items, which was why I mentioned earlier that it will be helpful for you to have the headshot files. In total, we spent about 3 weeks to get our ducks in a row, and our lawyer helped us send in the RFE response and prepared for everything in May 2022. Fortunately, 2 weeks after that, we received the interview request and the I-693 request as well for the report of medical examination and vaccination record. And as I had mentioned before, we didn't submit the I-693 along with our application because my lawyer basically told me that if my interview date was too far away from my application sent-in date, I might be requested to do it again, which I also heard a friend that had to do that. So he spent twice the money, which was another few $100s added to the cost. I've also seen stories online that people have submitted their I-693, but still received a deficiency notice and had to do it again. And honestly, I wasn't surprised at all when I saw that because I literally had just experienced that with the RFE requesting multiple items that we have submitted before. So because of that, I didn't go to a civil surgeon until about a month before my interview. Now, when it comes to the cost, I personally spent about $500 without insurance coverage. And to break that down, my civil surgeon was about $250, and I also needed to get a dose of vaccine and a physical exam, which was another $250 to do both. With insurance coverage, you might get it cheaper, but hopefully by sharing my costs with you, it can help you plan. My biggest takeaway was to provide your vaccination to your civil surgeon and wait for them to tell you what you need to do. Originally, my lawyer didn't tell me what the plan was, but I knew that there were vaccination required through the process. And so I asked my lawyer about it. He found the list from the USCIS website and gave it to me. And I used the list and spent a lot of time looking into this one vaccine that I didn't have. And I didn't even need it because I'm an adult already. So all my troubles could have been avoided if I had known. If I'm correct, civil surgeons are the only trusted source for your examination and documentation, and both inside and outside of the States. In Taiwan, I've seen that there are USCIS recognized doctors specific for this, and so I presume other countries are the same. For me, in the States, all I had to do was use the USCIS website, and I found my civil surgeon on there. I called them up and asked them about my specific case, and then he told me what to do right there, right then. And so I'm sure your civil surgeon will be able to do the same for you. Another tip is to call up a few different civil surgeons and compare the price. That way you'll be able to find a doctor that is educational, helpful, and also reasonably priced. You can always ask them about your specific case first, the price, and also what you need to do, and go from there. And my experience with my civil surgeon was I met with him twice. The first time I paid half of the expense and he told me what to do so I can get my vaccine and also my physical exam. And then the second time I met with him, I provided all of that to him. He finished all the paperwork for me, sealed it in an envelope and signed it, and I paid for the second half of the payment, and that was it. Since I didn't send it in with my application, I took it with me to the interview, which was scheduled for July 2022, and that was about 8 months after our application was sent in. And there you go. That was everything that I had experienced all the way leading up to the interview. For those of you who are watching for your own applications, here are a couple extra takeaways for you to consider. So the first one is on how you can manage your time expectations. The USCIS website actually has a couple of tools that can help you check the average processing time and also your case status. Although I have seen some online comments saying that the processing time tool was not that accurate, I've used the tool and I think at least that is something that I can base my timing off of. So that was helpful for me personally. I will share the links in the description below, and including an article I found that was helpful on how to use it. I personally didn't learn about these tools until 6 months later. If I had known about the tools, I would have known that my expectations of 4 to 5 months of processing time for employment authorization was completely unrealistic, because it was in fact 9 months long. Hopefully by sharing these two tools with you, it will save you some headaches and also the emotional drag that I had to experience. Now, besides checking your case status on the USCIS website, I've also seen people using this app called the Case Tracker for USCIS NVC. The app itself has quite good reviews, and when I was testing it, it only taken my case number and not any personal information. So although it doesn't seem to be like an official USCIS app, I felt safe about it, and it was good for me to use. But for you, if you want to consider it, use it in your own discretion. The app itself also gives you push notification when a case status changes, so that might be helpful to you as well. I'll leave the link in the description below and you can check it out yourself. The second takeaway is on financial stability. In my opinion, having some sort of a savings is extremely helpful. Not only can you use it as a proof of financial stability for your case, but it also can help you carry through the waiting period if you're unable to work like me. The financial burden on you and your spouse will also be much less. For me personally, I had to wait 9 months to get my green card, and 10 months and a half to start making money again. It was nice to have a break, but after 6 months of using my savings, and that was what the original plan was, to be out of work for 6 months, I had to start monitoring my spending and be a little bit worried about when I'll actually get my green card and things like that. And so having some sort of a financial plan will be really helpful. And that is all for today. In the next video, I'll be sharing our marriage green card interview experience. If you're interested in learning more, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you can get notified in real time. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving me a thumbs up, as that will really help me with the YouTube algorithm. For any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll try my best to address them and answer them for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.